In the news tonight, Donald Trump is sworn in as the 45th President of the United States, succeeding Barack Obama. Daesh terrorists destroy one of the most famous monuments in the ancient city of Palmyra. And Iraqi security forces step up their attacks to recapture the last remaining areas in northeastern Mosul. Good evening and welcome to a new edition of the news. Here are the details. Donald Trump was sworn in as the 45th President of the United States, succeeding Barack Obama. Some 900,000 people packed central Washington, including the National Mall facing the Capitol, where Trump was sworn in, and the parade route along Pennsylvania Avenue to the White House. Trump and his Vice President Mike Pence began the day attending a prayer service at St. John's Episcopal Church. Shortly after the swearing-in, Trump took up the pen, signing a host of documents, reportedly including nominations, proclamations, and a waiver. An ABC News Washington Post poll this week found only 40% of Americans viewed Trump favorably. It is the lowest rating for an incoming president since Democrat Jimmy Carter in 1977, and the same percentage approved of how he has handled the transition. We will have more on Trump's inaugural ceremony shortly.
I, Donald John Trump, do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully execute.
That I will faithfully execute.
Trump takes control of a divided country in a transition of power that he has declared will lead to America First policies at home and abroad. His address was a message to unify the country.
Now arrives the hour of action. Do not allow anyone to tell you that it cannot be done. No challenge can match the heart and fight and spirit of America. We will not fail. Our country will thrive and prosper again. We stand at the birth of a new millennium, ready to unlock the mysteries of space, to free the earth from the miseries of disease, and to harness the energies, industries, and technologies of tomorrow. A new national pride will stir our souls, lift our sights, and heal our divisions. It's time to remember that old wisdom our soldiers will never forget, that whether we are black or brown or white, we all bleed the same red blood of patriots.
Revisiting themes from his campaign victory, Trump said his presidency would aim to help struggling middle-class families, build up the U.S. military, and strengthen U.S. borders.
Every decision on trade, on taxes, on immigration, on foreign affairs will be made to benefit American workers and American families. We must protect our borders from the ravages of other countries making our products, stealing our companies, and destroying our jobs.
But Trump's ascension to the White House raises a host of questions for the United States. His desire for warmer ties with Russian President Vladimir Putin and threats to cut funding for NATO nations has left many countries worried that the traditional U.S. security umbrella will be diminished. In the Middle East, Trump has said he wants to move the U.S. Embassy in Israel from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, at the risk of angering Arabs and stirring international concern. And he has yet to sketch out how he plans to carry out a campaign pledge to knock the hell out of Daesh, as he said it. Various dignitaries arrived for the inauguration ceremony, including former Presidents George W. Bush, Jimmy Carter, and Bill Clinton, who was accompanied by his wife, the Democratic presidential nominee, Hillary Clinton. Former Republican Vice Presidents Dick Cheney and Dan Quayle, and Speakers of the House Newt Gingrich and John Boehner were also at the ceremony. More than 60 Democratic lawmakers stayed away from the proceedings. Following the ceremony, outgoing President Barack Obama and Michelle bade farewell to the White House and boarded a helicopter. The former first couple exchanged a few words with Trump and the First Lady before waving goodbye to the spectators. And as Trump takes over a country divided after his savage election campaign, the wealthy New York businessman and former reality TV star will set the country on a new uncertain path at home and abroad. Rana Hassan for the news at 10.
Prior to the inauguration ceremony, black-clad activists protesting Trump's inauguration smashed store and car windows in Washington and fought with police in riot gear. About 500 people marched through the city's downtown, breaking the windows of a Bank of America branch, a McDonald's outlet and a Starbucks shop, apparently to target symbols of the American capitalist system. The crowds carried banners that read, "Make racist afraid again." Police responded in force using pepper spray and stun grenades to disperse the crowds. There were also anti-Trump protests around the world, including in London, Hong Kong and Berlin. After much-needed rest and family time, President Barack Obama and First Lady Michelle said they will start working on the future presidential center in Chicago. In a video, the Obamas invited citizens to help by sending them ideas, hopes and beliefs about what needs to be achieved in their project.
After 8 years in the White House, Michelle and I now rejoin all of you as private citizens. We want to thank you once again from the bottom of our hearts for giving us the incredible privilege of serving this country that we love. We also want to tell you a little bit about what we'll be up to next. The center will be based on the south side of Chicago, but it will have projects all over the city, the country, and the world. More than a library or a museum, it will be a living, working center for citizenship. That's why we want to hear from you. Tell us what you want this project to be, and tell us what's on your mind.
Send us your ideas, your hopes, your beliefs about what we can achieve together. Tell us about the young leaders and companies and organizations that inspire you. This will be your presidential center just as much as it is ours. So we want you to tell us what we should be thinking about as we get to work.
To regional news, where Daesh terrorists have destroyed one of the most famous monuments in the ancient Syrian city of Palmyra. The tetrapylon, marking a junction along Palmyra's Grand Colonnade, comprises a raised stone platform with matching structures of 4 columns positioned at each of its corners. Syrian Antiquities Chief Ma'mun Abdel Karim said if Daesh remained in control of Palmyra, it means more destruction. The Syrian government lost control of Palmyra to the terrorist group twice. Here's more.
It was one of the most famous monuments in the ancient city of Palmyra. The tetrapylon and the facade of its Roman theatre reportedly destroyed by Islamic State. Satellite images sent to Reuters show 4 of 16 columns still standing and the stone platform apparently covered in rubble. The Syrian government lost control of Palmyra to the militant group in December, the second time they've overrun the UNESCO World Heritage Site in the 6-year-long conflict. Last May, a famous Russian orchestra performed at the theatre after Palmyra was won back. The jihadist group has previously destroyed other monuments there, including its 1800-year-old monumental arch. The most recent damage has been accompanied by a wave of executions. IS killed 12 people in the city earlier this week. Palmyra, known in Arabic as Tadmur, stood at the crossroads of the ancient world. Experts say if Islamic State remains in control, further destruction of ancient sites should be expected.
5 Turkish soldiers were killed and 9 wounded in a car bomb attack by Daesh terror group near the northern Syrian town of Al-Bab. The Turkish military said the wounded soldiers were flown to the Turkish border town of Kilis in military helicopters and rushed to hospital. Turkey's military said Russian warplanes had carried out airstrikes on Tuesday on Daesh targets south of Al-Bab in coordination with Turkey. Iraqi security forces prepare to enter one of the last remaining areas in northeastern Mosul that have yet to fall into their control from Daesh. Forces with tanks and helicopters said they were close to gaining complete control of the area of Tel el-Kef. A member of the forces preparing for the fight said they were outside the gates of Tel el-Kef, ready to enter, and that a few Daesh fighters were besieged in the area. The forces later entered one home in the area where they discovered a tunnel which they believe was dug out by the terror group. An Iraqi general said earlier that most Daesh commanders in Mosul have been killed in battles with Iraqi government forces that raged over the past 3 months in the eastern side of the city. An army general said the fight to take the western side of Mosul, which remains under the terrorist control, should not be more difficult than the one on the eastern side. The Iraqi army's counter-terrorism service had also announced that almost all of the city's eastern half had been brought under government control. Here at home, Christian Orthodox churches celebrated Baptism Day and the start of the Orthodox pilgrimage. The celebration at the Jordan Valley baptism site of Jesus Christ was attended by Orthodox church leaders and clergy and more than 5,000 pilgrims. Roman Orthodox Bishop in Jordan, Metropolite Benedictus, said in a speech to the crowd that we are in a dire need of freedom and peace in a turbulent region. He said Jordan is living a normal life in a burning region beset by wars. The bishop saluted Jordanian martyrs who fell in the line of duty. Jordanians are one people and one nation that coexist in peace and harmony and aspire for progress and development, he added. The bishop thanked His Majesty the King and His Royal Highness Prince Ghazi for the upkeep of the baptism site and its promotion to the world. The celebration, attended by ministers, MPs and foreign diplomats, began with a parade and marched to the east bank of the Jordan River. It was followed by a mass and baptism rituals. An old residential building collapsed in the East Amman neighborhood of Al Jofe. 2 other buildings in the vicinity also crumbled, but there were no injuries as residents had already been evacuated by civil defense crews. Interior Minister Ghalib Zorbi chaired a meeting to discuss the aftermath of the collapses and the measures taken to determine the cause of the collapses. He said joint technical and security committees were formed to follow up on the details and embark on prompt measures to accommodate the tenants of the buildings. He said 52 families had been relocated and housed and provided with the necessary needs. The minister said the National Building Council had been asked to conduct a survey at the location and report back to the ministry. A United Nations human rights investigator criticized Myanmar's crackdown on the Rohingya Muslim minority and urged the military to respect the law and human rights. Authorities say the military launched a security sweep in response to an alleged deadly attack in October by the Rohingya on border posts with Bangladesh. Since then, at least 86 people have been killed, and the United Nations says at least 65,000 Rohingya have fled to Bangladesh. Residents and refugees accuse the military of killing, raping and detaining civilians while burning villages in northwestern Rakhine state.
It would be particularly important for the security forces to always act within the parameters of the rule of law and in compliance with human rights.
West African leaders extended a deadline for Gambia's longtime leader Yahya Jammeh to leave office. The president will face action by a regional military force to install President Adama Barrow, the winner of an election in December. Streets were empty and shops were closed in the Gambian capital Banjul as West African troops prepared for a military intervention to remove the incumbent president. The presidents of Mauritania and Guinea flew to the capital Banjul to try to persuade Jammeh to cede power peacefully. Troops spearheaded by Senegal and Nigeria crossed into Gambia yesterday at the request of Barrow, who was sworn in at Gambia's embassy in Dakar as Jammeh refused to step down. But sources in the regional group, the Economic Community of West African States, said no further military action would take place until negotiations are complete. Jammeh has been in power since a 1994 coup. Relatives of the people buried under an avalanche in a mountain hotel in central Italy gathered at a hospital in Pescara where some of the survivors were being treated. 6 people were found alive today, 2 days after being buried under snow and debris. The relatives were waiting for news of their loved ones. More than 30 people were in the luxury hotel Rigopiano when the wall of snow slammed into it on Wednesday, spearheading debris across the valley floor. An investigation into the tragedy has been opened amid accusations that the emergency response was slow. The first rescuers arrived amid a snowstorm on skis early yesterday, some 11 hours after the avalanche. 3 people were killed, including a child, and 15 others injured when a car slammed into pedestrians in the Australian city of Melbourne. Though the driver deliberately drove his vehicle into the people, the incident was not terrorism-related. Police said the offender was in custody after being chased over a domestic assault and driving offences. Officers eventually rammed the car and shot the 26-year-old driver in the arm before dragging him from the vehicle and arresting him. A rampaging Roger Federer delivered a stunning reminder of his class at the Australian Open with a crushing 3-set win over Thomas Berdych. This was seeded 17th, sent the 10th seed Czech packing after a 90-minute masterclass. With his 6-2, 6-4, 6-4 victory, Federer stormed into the 4th round to face 5th seed Kai Nishikori of Japan in the quarterfinals. Nishikori made it to the 4th round after beating Lukas Lako of Slovakia in confident style. The Japanese won 6-4, 6-4, 6-4. The first stage of the Monte Carlo rally was cancelled after an incident involving driver Hayden Paddon caused the death of a spectator. Paddon was almost at the end of the 21.25-kilometer stage of the season opening when he lost control as he entered a left-hand corner and hit a bank clear first. And finally, cold tonight across many areas, including in the Jordan Valley and the Dead Sea. Tomorrow, relatively cold conditions continue with northwesterly moderate winds. The Gulf of Aqaba should expect a cool night tonight, but a relatively warm day tomorrow, while winds will be northerly moderate and the seas calm. Here now is the temperatures forecast for tonight and tomorrow. And to close, here's a reminder of the day's top stories. Donald Trump is sworn in as the 45th President of the United States, succeeding Barack Obama. Daesh terrorists destroy one of the most famous monuments in the ancient Syrian city of Palmyra. And Iraqi security forces step up their attacks to recapture the last remaining areas in northeastern Mosul. And with this, we come to the end of this edition of the news. I'm Ali Atqan. Thank you for joining us. Have a good night, and I'll see you tomorrow.